The next item that we will be covering are called generator expressions. I'm going to start off by creating a variable called n. Now we're going to set that to sum. We're going to take x to the x power, x times x. So we're going to go x times the x for x in range. So what this is doing is, we're going to use with range with the number 10, we're creating a list from 1 to 10. And so each time, so the first time through, x will be 1, so it'll be 1 times 1, followed by, we're just going to add 2 times 2, plus 3 times 3, and so on until we hit 10. And we're going to go ahead and print the value of n. And we save it and run the file. We get a value of 285. Now we could have also done this by using a list. And let's just go ahead and do that really quick. So our square brackets indicate that it is a list. So x times x for x in range. Then if we go ahead and print this, save and run the file, we're going to get the same value. As we stated just a moment ago, that the first method using the generator expression will yield the result, will loop through and yield the result much faster than using a list like in the second example. Obviously with only 10 numbers, this is, or 10 items in a list, this is going to be very small. Once we get up to larger amounts of data, then this will start making a huge difference. So the next example, we're going to start by creating a new method. So we're going to call double it. And we will be taking a value of n, and then we will simply return n times 2. And so we're going to create a list of numbers. And we'll just set them to 1 through 4. And so I'm going to create a new variable called doubles. Now we're going to use the map function. So first we need to create, actually I'll just go ahead and do this for demonstration purposes. So map, and then so inside the map function, the first thing we have to do is call the method that we will be using, which is double it, followed by the items that we're iterating through, which are numbers. Okay, so if I save this and run it, what we're going to get back is a map object. So when we map through a list, basically we're iterating through an entire list, and then we're getting a value returned back for every single item in the list. But what we have to do is convert that back to a list from the map object. So what I need to do is call the list method, the list function, and so if we rerun this, we should actually get a value. So obviously we get 2, 4, 6, and 8. So it's looping through every single item in the list and doubling it by calling it the double it function. There's another common way that we can do this. Instead of calling an external function, we can use basically an anonymous function or a lambda. So I'm going to recreate using the same variable name. And like before, we have to call the list function. So inside our map function, so the first parameter has to be the function. So we're going to use a lambda expression. Actually, we need to pass the x value. And then so the next item will be the return. So the return is going to be x times 2. And then we have to pass in our list of numbers. So if we go ahead and save that and run it, we should get the same item again, which we do, 2, 4, 6, 8, which is the double of each item in the original list. In this next example, I'm going to paste in our dictionary of players. That this is the same example we've been using from the previous videos. And if you'll notice, there's a bunch of, what we have is a dictionary of players. Each player name is the key, and the value of each item in the player's dictionary is a nested dictionary containing all of the stats for that player. So if you notice in this that in all of these there's no slugging percentage. So what we want to do is add the slugging percentage to this. So one way we can do this is a nested for in loop. So we can loop through every single player, and then so in order to add slugging percentage, I'm going to go to the top of the file and then define a new function called get slugging percentage. So we're going to need a couple of arguments. The first one is going to be total bases. And we also need the number of at-bats. So we're going to return a value. We want to round this off to 3 decimal places, so we need to call the round function. So we're going to take total bases, divide that by at-bats, and then the second item is how many places we want to round it to, which is 3. Now, since we're working with a dictionary, what we could do is we could create another method called mapPlayer. So we're going to be passing in the player, and then as you recall from the previous tutorial that when we loop through these, what we're going to be passing in from inside the loop is going to be a tuple. So a tuple containing the first item in the tuple is going to be the key, which is the player's name. The second item is going to be the dictionary containing the stats. So we'll just make this explicit by calling this a tuple. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a print statement in here to show that. And so we need the dictionary value that contains the stats so we can add the slugging percentage. I'm going to create a new variable called player dict for the player dictionary. And we need to pass in the index value of 1 because, like I said, the 0 item is going to be the player's name, which is the key for the dictionary from the original dictionary. And so we need to set a new value. So we'll just call it SLG for slugging percentage. So we need to call the get slugging percentage method, which we defined above. And we'll have to pass in the total bases. What I'm going to do is move this over here. And then once we take care of that, we have to return the value. So we can, now that we've put those functions in, we can go ahead and use the map function. So what I'm going to do is just use the player's variable again. So we need to call the output that we have. What we have is structure-wise is a dictionary. So we need to call the dict method. And then we call map. And we need to call players.items to get every item in the dictionary. So just to recap here, when we call the map function, we're basically iterating through every item, getting a value returned to us. So the first argument inside the map function is the method that we're calling, followed by the list or items that we're iterating through. And if we go ahead and print players, and if I save that and run the file, so we ended up getting a couple of things. The first item that we printed out, recall we are printing the map player tuple. So when we iterated through players.items, what that is creating is a tuple, which the first item is the original key, which is player's name, and then the dictionary. And then down here, the dictionary that we have after running through it, it contains everything that's in here plus the slugging percentage. So what I'll do here is just comment that out and then rerun it. And then as we can see, we have the original dictionary with everything included. This is also going to include the slugging percentage, which we can see for our first player, a value of 631. Go ahead and comment that line out. So the last thing that there's a couple more things. So we're gonna go over filters. So let's go back to our numbers variable. As you recall, that was a list containing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's say we want to just filter out the even numbers. So I can create a variable called evens. List filter. And so similar to the map function, it's going to take in a couple of parameters. So when we call filter, the first thing we have to do is pass in the function that we will be calling. So we're going to use an anonymous function, a lambda expression. Lambda x. So what we're going to check is we're going to use the modulus operator. So x, the %2. And then we're checking for equality. So if x minus 2, mod 2 and the remainder is 0, that's going to return a true value. And so we need, as a second argument for the filter function, we have to pass in our numbers. Then if we go ahead and print, and if we save that and let me clear and run, so we're going to get values of a list of 2 and 4. So that covers filters. The final thing that we will be covering is reduce. So reduce, we're going to basically iterate through something and then it's going to return a single value. Let's just create some more space. So I'll just create a new variable. We'll just go ahead and call it result. And then we're going to call the reduce method. And let's go ahead and use another lambda expression. And then so what we need to do is pass in x and y. And then so what we're going to return is x plus y. So what we're doing is we're looping through the list of numbers once again. And then so it's going to add, it's basically going to add 1 plus 2, take that result, plus 3, take that result, plus 4. So if we look at this function, x is going to be the value of 1, y is going to be the second item in the list, which is the number 2. So it's going to add those together and then just give us a cumulative total at the end. So if we go ahead and print our results, save and run. So we actually have to import the reduce function. So I'm going to go to the top of the file, and that is in the func tools library. So we imported reduce, and then so if we go ahead and rerun that, we get a value of 10. So 1 plus 2 is 3, plus another 3 is 6. Then that cumulative total plus 4 is going to give us our value of 10. And let's just go ahead and do another example. We're going to do something very similar, except we're going to multiply those two values. So if we multiply x and y and then print our results, we're going to get a value of 24. So we took 1 times 2, and then that value is 2, times 3 is 6, times the last value in the list, times 4 is 24. And that's how we arrived at that amount. And let's go back to our just a list of players, a list of players' names specifically. Let's say we want to know who has the longest name in terms of character length. So let's create a value, longest string. And we're going to call reduce. Lambda x and y. And then so what we're going to do, each time we loop through this, we're going to return x if the length of x is greater than the length of y. Else we'll return y. So if x the length of x is greater than y, we're returning x. If not, then we return the y value. That way, each time it runs through the list, it's going to keep the name that was the longest string-wise, character length-wise, and save that at the end. So we're going to be looping through players. And then we'll go ahead and print the longest string. And we save the file and run that. Frank Thomas has, so his name has more characters than the other two. So this has been a demonstration using Python iterators. Thank you for watching.